Well, good morning and welcome to church this morning. It's good to see you here, and it's especially good to welcome our folks who are watching online. My name is Kathy Neary, and I will be the pastor for today. And today is the first Sunday of Christmas. So it's the Sunday that comes after our celebration of Christmas Eve. So we will be reading a passage from the Gospel of Luke that seems to be a little disjointed. We went from 2 days ago celebrating the birth of Jesus to today seeing Jesus has a 12-year-old boy suddenly in the temple. So we're going to try and make some sense of that particular time jump in our story this morning. It is good to see all of you with us. And what we're going to be doing today, I hope you have a hymnal at home or you have a hymnal in the pews, because we're going to be singing a number of Christmas carols, just a few verses of each one. And so for those of you at home, I hope you can join in. And for those of you here, yes, we do have to keep our masks on, but you can sing as loud as you want today. So let's begin with our first Noel.
Shepherds in fields as they
you so much for that music. That was beautiful. As I mentioned, our reading for today comes from the Gospel of Luke, and it's from the 2nd chapter, verses 41 to 52. Now, every year, his parents went to Jerusalem for the festival of the Passover. And when he was 12 years old, they went up as usual to the festival. When the festival was ended and they started to return, the boy Jesus stayed behind in Jerusalem, but his parents did not know it. Assuming that he was in the group of travelers, they went a day's journey. Then they started to look for him among their relatives and friends. When they did not find him, they returned to Jerusalem to search for him. After 3 days, they found him in the temple, sitting among the teachers, listening to them and asking them questions. And all who heard were amazed at his understanding and his answers. When his parents saw him, they were astonished, and his mother said to him, "Child, why have you treated us like this? Look, your father and I have been searching for you in great anxiety." He said to them, "Why were you searching for me? Did you not know that I must be about my Father's affairs?" But they did not understand what he said to them. Then he went down with them and came to Nazareth and was obedient to them. His mother treasured all these things in her heart. And Jesus increased in wisdom and in years and in divine and human favor. May God bless the reading of this word. Well, Merry Christmas. Today is the first Sunday after Christmas, so we are in the season. The waiting is over. I hope you all had a great Christmas day with all its traditions and family rituals and, of course, football. Our story, our Christian story, is that God is with us, and that is the theme of the Christmas season. In our Christmas story, we remember God coming to us in the form of a little baby, born to poor parents in dangerous and uncertain times. God comes to us in a time when we walk in darkness, but now see a great light. God comes to us who live in a land of deep darkness, and on us a light has now shined. We rejoice in the Lord always. Okay, that was nice. Tomorrow we go back to work. Ho hum. There's always a little bit of a letdown after the build-up toward Christmas Day. We can baste ourselves in the feeling of God's presence only so long. A question creeps into the most joyous of us. God is with us. So what do we do now? What's next? What do we do now is exactly the gospel writer's question. Luke wrote his gospel with a very clear goal in mind. Luke wanted his readers to know what to do next after reading the gospel. Back in the time of Luke, biographies were not written with the same purpose in mind as today. Now, biographers want to create an accurate historical record of some person's life. In Luke's time, biographers wrote to elicit a particular response from their readers. Historical accuracy was not in the cards. They didn't care about that. All the Gospels shaped the story of Jesus to elicit a faithful response to Jesus. Luke wanted his readers to do what Jesus did and to know God as Jesus knew God. Those were Luke's two goals in writing the gospel. Imagine with me the author Luke at work on his gospel. In his home, Luke has a big board that he can tape index cards to. And he's going to create a flow for the story. And every index card has a plot point. Jesus is baptized, put that up on the board. Jesus feeds 5,000. Jesus is arrested. Jesus argues with religious leaders. And Luke has a bunch of cards that say that, because he does it all the time. Luke also has a scroll with him that has the Gospel of Mark. And Luke makes sure that he has all of Mark's plot points on index cards as well. Of course, Luke has some points that are his alone, like Jesus tells the prodigal son parable. Whoop, there's a new index card. Luke steps back and looks at the whole board, and he thinks, how am I going to arrange these plot points to meet my goals? Well, Luke thinks, I am big on orderliness. So I'm first going to put them in a logical order. So I'm going to put the baptism here, disciple picking, arguing, healing story, more arguing, another healing story, feeding the 5,000. You get the idea. He takes his index cards and he puts them in an order that seems to make sense to him. He decides, however, to tell the feeding story only once. Mark told it twice. Luke adds a few more stories about women than Mark had. Overall, the gospel is coming along. Luke's got the beginnings of a good story, but it's not quite there. Luke needs a brainstorm. Luke wants people to do what Jesus did and to know God the way Jesus knew God. He wants those things to come out of people reading his gospel. Now, in Luke's time, the authors would place the most important part of a story in the center of the story. Now, today, if we were going to write, for example, a mystery story, we would build up to the solution to the mystery and leave it to the very end. But Luke wasn't writing a mystery story. He was writing to inspire people. So Luke knows he has to place all the things that Jesus did at the center of his story, so people will know that's what's important. But at this point, that's all he's got. Luke needs brackets to center the action of Jesus in his gospel. He needs something on either side of the center to have a center. Well, eureka! He writes 2 new index cards. One says, the boy Jesus goes to the temple. And the other one says, the man Jesus goes to the temple. He brackets the center of his story with 2 similar stories on either end. Pretty smart, huh? These 2 stories of Jesus in the temple bracket the stories of what Jesus did and point the reader to the center. That's very important. The story of the boy Jesus in the temple only occurs in the Gospel of Luke because only he needed to tell it. And this story foreshadows what is to come. There is the small detail of Mary and Joseph searching for Jesus for 3 days, a very specific number. Jesus is lost and then found, a very important theme in the rest of the gospel. And Jesus says he must involve himself in his Father's affairs. For the rest of the gospel, we are going to learn from Jesus how to focus on God's affairs. When Jesus is a man and returns to the temple, he reminds people that they should have been listening to him all along. And Jesus predicts what will happen if they don't listen to him now. At the beginning of the gospel, Jesus says in the temple, "Watch me do my Father's work." At the end of the gospel, Jesus says in the temple, "You should have been watching me do my Father's work." And right in between those bookends is the important stuff, what Jesus did and how Jesus saw God. It's in the middle, so it must be important. At this point, Luke has what he needs to shape the faith of readers. He has a good, solid outline for his gospel. Then the magic happens. Luke works magic on his rudimentary gospel. He adds another set of brackets. Luke adds a birth story at the beginning and a death story at the end. By adding these two pieces, and by adding them last, Luke continues to point his readers to the center, to the middle of the gospel, where the meat is. Birth story, death story. Boy Jesus in the temple, man Jesus in the temple, and the center, what Jesus did and how Jesus knew God. Of course, how Luke arranged the plot is only one part of the mastery of this storyteller. He took that outline and wrote some of the most amazing prose the world has ever heard. Luke answers our question of what do we do now with the shape of the gospel and the words of the gospel. When we go home today and finish off the eggnog and clean up the gift wrappings and check in with relatives on Skype or phone, we know what comes next. We read the middle portion of the Gospel of Luke, chapters 3 to 19, and we learn what Jesus did and how he knew God. Then we make a plan to do what Jesus did and to learn to know God as Jesus knew God. That is what comes next. Now, for those of you who are still paying attention, you might realize I left off part of the gospel. There's one more piece to Luke's gospel. There's one more piece, indeed, to all the gospels, and that's the story of the resurrection. For Luke's gospel, it really is an epilogue, as we can see from the shape of the rest of the gospel. That doesn't mean the resurrection is unimportant, but rather is a standalone piece to this story. Once we readers learn to do as Jesus did and to know God as Jesus knew God, we will be hit with the hard reality that being like Jesus is very difficult work. It's dangerous, and sometimes it can even be deadly. The resurrection story tells us that through our pain and suffering, God is still with us. Even through death, God is still with us. In the end, God will overcome death for us and with us. God has the final word, and that word is resurrection. Now, go home, or if you're already at home, stay there, and read chapters 3 through 19 of the Gospel of Luke. Discuss it with others, make a plan, do what Jesus did, know God as Jesus knew God, and know also God is with us always. For our pastoral prayer this morning, since there are so few of us here in the sanctuary, I can actually ask those of you who are here if you have special joys or concerns that you would like to lift up with us today. And I know nobody was expecting that, so just take a moment. I would like to mention that we just heard that Bishop Desmond Tutu from South Africa passed away today. And I had the privilege of bringing some college students to a meeting at which he was the keynote speaker, and the man just vibrated the grace of God. He was an amazing person, and we need to celebrate and remember Bishop Desmond Tutu. Are there other joys and concerns that you might have that you would like to share today? Anything? Oh, spending Christmas with family. Yes, that is a great joy.
All the homeless and people that have no food.
All right. So we need to keep in our prayers those people experiencing homelessness and the cold right now. There are shelters available for folks, but sometimes they can't make it to those shelters. So we need to keep those people in our prayers and remember their situation of hunger and sometimes danger as well. Other prayers of joy or concern. Well, I pray that you all will travel safely as you go on your way. Let us lift these prayers to the Lord. Gracious and loving God, we give you thanks for this miracle of the Christmas season, for the reminder that you are with us always. We are also reminded, because of our Christmas story, of how vulnerable people are to hunger and cold and suffering from other people's actions. Help us in this Christmas season to keep our hearts open, to keep our spirits generous as we enjoy the blessings that you have given us and that we need to share with others. We continue to pray using the words that Jesus taught us, saying together, "Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. Let's join together in some more Christmas hymns. And for those of you at home, you might want to get ready. We're going to start with It Came Upon the Midnight Clear, and that's number 218 in our hymnal. And then What Child Is This, number 219. And There's a Song in the Air, number 249.
From angels bending near the earth
hope you've gotten your fill of our Christmas songs during the last 2 worship services. And now, please receive the benediction. May we go forth from here knowing what comes next, knowing that we should do as Jesus did, and know God as Jesus knew God, and that God is with us. Amen. Thanks for coming, guys. Thank you.